Welcome back to a new episode of Insects for Fun. Have you ever picked up an empty snail shell and wondered who might have been clever enough to get inside? Enter the snail-eating beetle, a specialist predator that has evolved tools as precise as a locksmith's to get at one of nature's most well-protected animals. But before we start, if you haven't already, go check out the YouTube channel. I've been putting a lot of work into it recently, and some of my content has even gone viral. It's a great way to support what I do, and I'm also sure you will enjoy the informational shorts I script, edit, and release. Make sure to sub and comment on the videos that you came from my podcast. All right, back to the episode. Snail-eating beetles belong to the ground beetle family, Carabinae, but most of the classic snail specialists live in the tribe Cycrinae, subfamily Carabinae. What's cool is that there are many lineages which evolved independently, but ended up with the same body structure, a slim head and curved sickle-like mandibles. These features are perfect for probing deep into the spirals of a snail shell. These beetles usually prefer cool, moist, and forested habitats, places where snails flourish, and their polished black or iridescent shells glint like tiny armor among the moss and leaf litter. If you happen to move a rotting log at night in one such forest, you might see one of these crawling around with their antennae sweeping like metal detectors. Snail-eating beetles are specialists in every sense. They hunt mostly at night, following the chemical scent of snail mucus and the faint vibrations of their prey. When a beetle finds a snail, it uses its forelegs to brace the shell, and then it inserts its head and jaws. Instead of crushing, many of these beetles prefer a more surgical route by slicing, hooking, and tearing until the snail's body is extracted piece by piece. That being said, there are some species which have actually been observed pulling smaller snails out whole, a feat of precision that looks more like surgery than predation. Now, not all snail hunters use the same techniques though. Some carabids, like Batister pictus and Lycinus depressus, actually crack shells instead, and they use their asymmetrical mandibles to pry and chip away at the calcium fortress. In other cases, some snail-eating beetles have been observed preying on young snails with thin shells because it makes for an easier meal. Across regions, the beetles have different looks to reflect the local prey. In Europe, Cyprus caraboides thrives in damp, deciduous forests, with a narrow head designed to reach into tight, coiled shells. Meanwhile, across southern Europe and the mountainous region that leads to Asia, there are larger cypress species with heavier jaws. In North America, Scaphinotis angusticolus of the Pacific Northwest creeps through mossy forests, where native snails have really long shells. This has resulted in the evolution of narrower, elongated heads and necks, but their relatives in the Appalachians prefer flatter, thinner-shelled prey, and as a result tend to have slightly broader heads and stronger mandibles, giving them the leverage they need to crush their prey. In East Asia, there are more colorful long-necked snail-eaters, which range from metallic blue to emerald green. But these have a more generalist diet than the ones we've talked about thus far, and are not restricted to snails alone. There are multiple head and jaw shapes which lead to different hunting strategies: slender to get directly into shells, or stout to crush their prey. Okay, let's get into their life cycle. Females lay eggs in the soil or under leaf litter during spring or early summer, often near dense snail populations. The larvae are active, narrow-headed hunters, and they're pretty much ready to go as soon as they emerge from their eggs. Unlike the C-shaped grubs of other beetles, these larvae are sleek and mobile, with piercing jaws and quick reflexes. They pass through several instars, feeding and molting throughout the warm months, but many actually overwinter as larvae in the soil, resuming activity once the ground thaws in spring. Pupation occurs in a small earthen chamber, and the adults usually emerge in late spring or early summer. Most species complete one generation per year, but in milder climates, adults can survive for more than a season, extending the snail-eating pressure year-round. But snails haven't taken this lying down. In regions where snail-eating beetles are common, snails often evolve tighter, narrower apertures that make it difficult for beetles to get their heads in. Some even grow internal ridges or teeth made of calcium. In turn, beetles evolve longer, thinner mandibles to reach deeper inside. It's an evolutionary arms race, slow and steady, that has been unfolding for millions of years. And this kind of interplay between predator and prey has shaped both group diversity. In East Asia, for example, certain snail species alter not just their shell structure but also their behavior, retreating deeper into crevices or climbing vegetation to avoid ground beetles. Each adaptation on one side prompts a countermeasure on the other, an endless chess game in the undergrowth. But it's important to note that even expert hunters have enemies. Insectivorous birds, shrews, and small mammals eat adult beetles when they catch them. Frogs, toads, and lizards also take their share. And though rare, some parasites target them too, like the all too familiar hairworm, which have been found in ground beetles, forcing the host to seek water where the parasite's life cycle can continue. When threatened, snail-eating beetles defend themselves like their carabid cousins. They release a foul-smelling spray from glands at the tip of the abdomen. These sprays contain organic acids that taste terrible to predators. Combined with their nocturnal habits, this chemical defense helps them survive in forests full of hungry eyes. And though this all sounds cool, the beetles haven't really reached a mythic status like fireflies or scarabs when it comes to cultural connections. That being said, they have long fascinated entomologists though. Early naturalists described them as, quote, unnatural for their neck-like thoraxes and peculiar jaws. But these adaptations are great examples of evolution's engineering. Biology retooled for precision. To collectors, they're jewels. To ecologists, they're key players in balancing snail populations. And in the moist forest where they roam, these beetles are both predators and good indicators of an ecosystem. So next time you find an empty snail shell in the woods, pause before you assume a bird or mammal did the deed. It might have been the work of a midnight locksmith, a beetle with surgical tools built right into its head. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Insects for Fun. I hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you listen. And if you haven't already, go check out the YouTube channel. Again, I'm putting a lot of effort into that recently. Or you can support the show by going to the Patreon, where I have bonus episodes and vlogs, as well as ad-free episodes. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.